Before we wrap up, I have about 4 minutes. I want to get Rick's opinion on choice of ingredients. I'm just throwing in a random topic here, but there's a company here in my North Dallas area that went through something here, and the news just broke, Rick. The recent article came out, 2 individuals and 2 companies sentenced in scheme to fraudulently sell dietary supplements. Do you have any thoughts on DSHEA and knowing what to choose as far as ingredients and how to proceed?
So we've talked about, Jay and John and I tried to filter out and cover what we thought were some good issues in terms of how you can wind up in the penalty box. And there are many others. We could spend a whole afternoon talking about all the issues that can get you in the penalty box. One of the issues that I deal with very often, and I think it's more prevalent in sports nutrition because of the drive for innovation that may be in higher than in more conventional categories. But the idea of what you choose to put in that bottle, you better make sure that, first of all, that it is a dietary ingredient. That's, and if you're not sure, hire a consultant, get some legal opinions, get some science opinions on it. And then if it is a dietary ingredient, was it on the market prior to 1994? Because if it wasn't, then it would be what's considered a new dietary ingredient. And that may require filing a notification about that with FDA unless it meets certain exemption criteria. So making sure that it complies. And so I've been contacted by clients who are interested in finding out before they bring the product to market if it complies. And unfortunately, I've also had to help companies and individuals who didn't do that up front and who put into the bottle things that were not compliant in the eyes of FDA. So for example, things like selective androgen receptor modulators, SARMs, they are all around in the sports nutrition category. These are synthetic substances, similar to many of the synthetic pro-hormones that, Sean, you and I remember the rise and ultimately, fall of the pro-hormone market a few years back. In the case that you just cited, it was DMAA. That was the ingredient that FDA has a bone to pick with. So yeah, that's one of the main ways that you can really wind up in a penalty box that's not just a lawsuit, but is actually a criminal indictment and prosecution for introducing a misbranded drug into interstate commerce by launching an ingredient that does not comply with the Dietary Supplement Health and Education.
Rick, to that end, FDA offers on its website an ever-evolving list of ingredients of concern to the agency, so that if a brand owner or formulator wants to take a look at that to determine whether the ingredient they're currently working with falls on that list, they may give them pause.
Yeah, and Rick, that's a great point, John. And Rick, last thing, I mean, most people might think that a supplement company like that one with DMAA maybe has a recall, maybe there's a fine of some sort. I mean, what happened with that company? How dire was it?
Well, if a company in general launches an ingredient that is non-compliant, let's say it's a SARM, or let's say it's some synthetic steroid that was created many years ago and was never marketed, by introducing that into a supplement, you've misbranded, you've adulterated that supplement. And if you're calling it a supplement when it is not a supplement, there's an argument that you're defrauding the Food and Drug Administration out of its regulatory authority of approving drugs. And so those are criminal cases. The intent to defraud can be the difference between a misdemeanor or a felony, but very often the government will not only prosecute the company for doing it, but they'll look to prosecute the individuals who are the CEOs or other decision makers within the company. So I do a lot of the work, unfortunately, for folks who call me. They're very often already in harm's way, where the government has initiated an investigation and is looking at that company for doing something that violated the criminal laws. And that's not a place you want to be. And again, it brings us back to the idea that knowing up front, whether it's looking at FDA's website, whether it's looking at compliance issues or getting a consultant or a lawyer in advance to talk to you, it is far, far better to get educated before you put that product on the market than in putting something on the market that is non-compliant and ultimately potentially criminal.